Good morning, afternoon, and evening, and thank you for joining us today as we discuss how you can ensure your HR and payroll systems are ready for the future of work. 2020 has certainly proven to be anything but normal. There's been unexpected and constant change around each corner, and as a result, the conversation has turned to the impact made on companies and their employees. The world of work before and after COVID. Over the next hour, we'll guide you through the need to knows to ensure your organization can meet the agile needs of your workforce. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Today we have with us Mark Havercroft, Global Chief Customer Officer, SAP SuccessFactors, Gareth Roberts, Vice President Professional Services, Alight NGA HR, Marcos Suero, Field Solution Manager, Alight NGA HR, and I'm Heidi Harris, Alight NGA HR, and I'll be your moderator over the next hour. And with that, Mark, I'll pass it to you.
Firstly, thank you for joining again. The 2020s, certainly what a dynamic year. But as we've known before this, the world of work is changing dramatically. We're experiencing a shift in digital transformation. We're experiencing globalization. And we're also experiencing, I think, customers in general searching for quality within their products and services. So what we're really finding is as the world continues to change, we continue to evolve with it as we do. And as history tells us, as a society, we've done that. But I think what's really changing now is when we look at that traditional mindset, where we look at the traditional structures of organizations, we're really starting to see that fast changing world of work happen. And I think the backhanded, compliment COVID has given us is that it's given us that impetus as a society to utilize what is already available to us on our desktops and in our environment. For those of you who've heard me speak before, you'll know that I have a bit of an issue with the future of work because I'm very much of the belief the future of work is very much here and is very much now. It's really about society, marketplaces, taking that leap with innovation and encouraging that innovation. I think we only need to look at various examples that I'm sure the people listening to this will have seen. When we look at Henry Ford, when he invented the motor car, people thought that it was very extreme and absolutely unlikely, to his words, that everybody in the world will have a motor vehicle in some way, shape or form. Yet obviously we look now and such the case. Now, I'm certainly not drawing any comparisons with video calls to the invention of the motor car or industrial revolutions along those lines. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've all known that we've had this technology on our desktops and in our environment before. The ability to Skype, Zoom, Teams, Jam, whatever collaboration tool you wish to do, WhatsApp, FaceTime. The list is endless, right? We've decided that no, what we need to do is we need to get on a plane, we need to meet this one face to face, everybody needs to get together. Yet, as I said, the backhanded compliment of COVID is that what it's done is really allowed us to boost that adoption, to make it necessary without having the choice. And what we've all found is that, lo and behold, the technology worked just fine, and lo and behold, we can do a lot of this, and there's actually some benefits to this. There's some productivity benefits to this, there's some work-life balance benefits to this as well. But just like all technological and industrial changes in our society and in industry, there's also the good and the bad to everything. People are realizing that they're spending so much time on collaboration calls and video calls that maybe they're getting a bit over being on video all the time. Some people are realizing, yes, there is a balance, but actually I seem to be working more through this manner than I was before. Also, I think one of the big things, particularly when we look at things like COVID, where we are working from home and forced to be at home, is I was actually talking to a customer about this. I don't know if you noticed, but you go to work, you have that time as an individual yourself. You have your own persona at work, as well as you have a persona at home as a parent, as a friend. However your loved ones are set up at home. We have that time to be ourselves. Pre-COVID. Now, if you're 24/7 in the same room with your children, with your loved ones, with your pets, whatever the situation is, it's constant and relentless, and we start to see that affect, our social relationships as well as our working relationships as well. So yeah, the future of work has always been here. COVID has given us a big push to take this on, but like everything, we need to look at the positives but also understand the ethics and the well-being aspects of having technology in our lives 24/7. So I'm just going to pass over to Gareth, who's going to just dig into some of those statements there around COVID and what he's seeing and his point of view. So over to you, Gareth.
Thanks, Mark. When we think about the global impact that COVID-19 pandemic has had in our lives, it was almost unimaginable just how much change it would bring in such a short space of time. An economic recession and levels of unemployment not seen since the Great Depression. There is a clear division between companies that have advanced on their digital transformation journey and those that are really lagging behind, with those on that accelerated path being up to 60% more resilient than those who are not. The most telling change, though, is the impact that COVID-19 has had in the way that we work, moving from a co-located workforce to a virtual one. A development that started years ago with the proliferation of internet access has now been propelled to the centre stage. And unlike the financial crisis we experienced during 2007 to 2009, where our CFOs took centre stage, it's now HR taking that centre stage and in partnership with IT. And that leads their companies through these unprecedented times, with the key driver being, how do we build a more agile, more resilient business model? And the answer is by adopting a more digital-led strategy, creating virtual and flexible workforces. So what does this mean for HR, Mark?
Is their CEOs are very much in tune with them around people now, and they're very much understanding that the difference of their business adapting and transforming is basically going to be around the understanding of their people. So HR sit in the box seat for that, as the custodians, if you like, of people. Because all these things here, if we look at the people outcomes, these are things that are responsible across the business. HR does not own culture, the business owns culture. Yet culture, capability, careers and performance are all going to be kind of key metrics that let you pulse the people in your organization. And so the business is very keen to measure it like it would be any asset. So HR are really going to have to be business focused and understand that they are now running and custodians of the key asset for the organizations that they work for. So those people outcomes, if you think, will constantly change and move. You start to get into conversations around culture when you look at the workforce structure. If nobody's in the office or you have a large contingent workforce, also workforces will pivot, will come and go as projects come on and off, as organizations change. So culture is a living and moving thing. And as I said, it's owned by the organization. But I do believe that HR should be the custodians of what that culture is. Capability, of course, critical. Not just what capability do you have now, but that ever investment into reskilling the workforce. Now, that's critical for us as individuals. And it's also extremely critical for an organization when it wants the right people with the right skills at the right time. It's not an easy problem to solve, but it really does need to start to understand the commercial strategy of an organization to understand what skills are there and what skills will be needed in the short, medium and long term. Of course, performance. Just like any asset, we want to measure and understand its performance. When does it work best? When doesn't it work best? What are those performance indicators? We're moving into an age of innovation and needing to be flexible and pivot. Well, I think we're going to start to see, well, I certainly hope we're going to start to see the rise of encouragement to innovate and change. And that could take the form of KPIs such as, trying things and failing and learning about the failure and understanding and reporting back on that. Because as I'm sure you'll all know, all the great innovation in this world comes from things that are tried and maybe have not worked. And then we iterate and try again. So performance, I think, is going to take on a whole new world. And again, all this in a structure of careers and aspirations that are going to be very agile. I think gone are the days now where somebody's going to have not that they don't have to have, but gone are the days of where they have a linear career. You start in finance and you stay in finance. Businesses are going to need that capability to be moving to where it needs them. So I think the benefits of a lot of this for people in HR is that they're going to be able to move people around based on core skills and abilities, and people are going to get a breadth of experiences and skills, and that could well be finance, marketing, sales, IT, and a combination of other things yet to be discovered. But we're going to start to get people with more of a portfolio career and a portfolio of abilities and experiences. So the next piece I've got in here is employee experience. Quite a buzz at the moment. I mean, I'm sure you're you're not new to SuccessFactors launching HXM. Ultimately, employee experience really is a business driver around customer experience. Employee engagement, a positive employee environment directly correlates to a customer's experience and a positive experience. These are well proven measurements and have been shown in all sorts of organizations, and I'm sure you've all experienced it yourselves on this call. But it's going to be really critical to be able to have the right talent and ensure that your employee value proposition, the environment you have, is a place where you will have talent that will come and will go and will want to come back and will tell its friends about how good it is to work there. Equally, as the world it is, companies like Glassdoor and alike and other things will also tell you how bad it is. So employee experience is going to come very much around the brand exercise and also the true experience of an employee. And a lot of that is going to be around the individual being able to individualize their experience across the technologies that are available to them to be able to do the role that they do. Finally, we have the analytics. All of this, any business works on the basis of measurement and numbers. Okay, employee experience can be measured, capabilities can be measured, performance, all those things are measured. And it's going to be not a surprise, I hope, to most that the data we generate now, just as individuals in our own social media, is a huge amount. I forget the number, but I'm sure somebody will know. It's an astronomical amount. So when I also look at the data that our customers generate around workforces, and that could be workforces from 50 to 150 to 100,000, 200,000. The data we generate around people and performance is enormous, and analytics will really help us focus in on how we get the best out of people, and also how the individual understands how they're performing and where they're going to go. And again, we're going to have to balance lifestyle, we're going to have to balance capabilities and desires, and we're also going to have to manage that within a well written governance model, which allows employees to be free and be innovative and be those assets, but also within the bounds of governance that we all need. So Gareth, there is a lot on HR's plate, as you can see, but I also think it's a very, very exciting time for HR as well. Now, people considerations. Look, this, as I said, people will come now to be the heart of the business. So we really need to think of them as an asset, really focus on our employee experience to our customer experience. Leadership has changed and is changing. Leadership is no longer about, I always talk about a triangle, leaders at the top and the organization below them waiting to be told where to do and what to do. What we're really going to see now is open leadership, leadership that empowers the edges of a business and really gives individuals in the roles the expertise and the ownership and the accountability to change and deliver and to improve. Selecting employees on fit is a really important point. That value proposition I talked about and your employee experience, you have to be honest what it is. There's nothing good or bad about it, but the worst thing you can do is just try to go down a branding route that kind of paints a picture about the organization that isn't correct. These people are going to be engaged virtually. The beauty of that is you can get the best people with the best skills to do it, but they may well be in Brazil and you may have them for 3 or 6 months. You need to ensure that these platforms are in place, not only to communicate and collaborate, but things like pay that we're here to talk about now, things like performance, etc., language. You truly need a global platform to really engage a global workforce and get the best advantage out of having a global workforce. Trust and transparency. To me, there's one word in that: trust. If you can garner trust with your organization, with your customers, that is really one measure that is invaluable to you. And I'm sure you'll all appreciate that in your own working environments. I don't think there's much more to say on that. And then, finding the balance in a hybrid model. This world is going to continue to change. It was always changing before this pandemic, I would probably like to add. And organizations were recognizing they can have an agile workforce. And I know that's a lovely term, but what I, layman's terms, what I mean by that is individuals were understanding that they didn't have to work at one place for 21 years. They were also understanding that they could have a portfolio career. Organizations were starting to recognize that their workforce had peak periods and down periods. And they were also recognizing that maybe they didn't need people full time all the time, but they could get better people in a part-time contingent basis as well. So lots of things to do for HR when it comes to managing that workforce. What does it look like? How do we measure it? And ultimately, remember, these are the people that will deliver the commercial goals of digital transformation. Let me pass it back to Gareth, who's going to give us a bit more around these subjects.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so why is moving HR and payroll systems to the cloud even more important right now? And really, really valid question, one that, we're in discussions with various different organizations every day. And even if it's not with us, it's what people are asking themselves every day, right? So what are the key benefits that we need to look at when we're thinking about what cloud actually offers, and then in turn, why it's important for HR and payroll to move across. So improved business resilience. A third of the UK workforce, for instance, are not working from their normal work location today. We ourselves actually switched to a work from home model when all of this started with the pandemic, and we did it seamlessly with zero loss of productivity. But we could only do that because we had the right tools and the right processes in place to allow us to do it. We had that agility and the resilience. Yet, speaking to one of my clients recently, very large global financial institution, they estimate to have lost almost 20% productivity in the early days of the lockdown. And that is absolutely huge. Think of the impact to not only your own people internally, but all of your customers then, and their family, their friends. The impacts just roll on and on. So having that improved business resilience is absolutely critical. And that's what cloud actually does. We need access to a larger talent pool. We need to source the best talent wherever it's based. We shouldn't be settling for talent based on a geographical proximity to our office location. And we need access to a high quality pool of talent that might not accept a traditional 9-to-5 office-based job. Improve flexibility when we think around, our workforce and how that's changing moving forward. By 2030, millennials are going to account for 75% of our workforce. And as numerous surveys highlight, 92% of those millennials prefer to work from home. And 80% of those, in fact, I believe it's 87%, want to have flexible hours with that. And they're actually becoming more and more demanding of it. And they're picking and choosing organizations on their brand, but also about those benefits that come with it. And improve productivity. The Quarterly Journal of Economics recently highlighted that working from home increases productivity by 13%, and it reduces staff attrition by actually up to 50%. So a significant impact. So think about those millennials that are coming into the workforce. Think about the productivity when we allow them to work in the way that they want, that we still get that productivity, we reduce attrition as well. And we get an improved work-life balance when we think about cloud working as well, and that cloud resourcing model. We've got less commuting time. We're saving hours every day in some cases, in the majority of cases, on our commute. And we're reducing our carbon footprint because we have less transportation that's needed to actually get people to work. When people are working from home, they don't have to commute, they're not using buses, they're not using the car. It's good for everybody. And that means we can reduce our office footprint. Instead of having fixed locations, we can instead move to more nimble, flexible office space that we can use on demand when it's needed, bringing the people together for the core activities, collaboration, get-togethers, making sure people understand who their colleagues are at the right point in time instead of every day. This leads us to overall reduced cost. So we see significant improvements to productivity, we see staff retention, and we're reducing fixed costs like maintenance, and our office footprint actually goes down as well. So we start to see when all of these things come together, we get reduced costs and improved business metrics coming out of the back. So cloud in itself is actually driving a huge impact to not just our workforce, but to the way HR and payroll actually contributes to the business and really putting a seat at the table. There we go, the slides come up now, cool. Okay, so when I think about the advantages of moving HR and payroll to the cloud, I'm really thinking about removing the shackles that are associated with a traditional on-premise solution. So cloud means we're not tied to an outdated technology or a location. We have the flexibility for our HR and payroll teams to run from anywhere with fewer people and without having to invest or maintain physical hardware. A great example of cloud advantage would be payroll continuity. Cloud payroll provides automation, real-time payroll monitoring, and the ability to move away from manual batch-style processing to a more automated continuous payroll process. Payroll exceptions are dealt with in real time, reducing manual intervention and associated risks that come with that, and it can be run from anywhere while still being able to quickly adapt to environmental and legislative changes like job retention schemes, for example. So cloud means access to the latest technologies and the processing power when and where it's needed. It gives us incredible flexibility with agility to adapt to the needs of the organization, and it's agile. We can adopt out-of-the-box solutions to help us innovate faster, to deliver new services, and to create human experiences like we've never really had before. And it's secure. Data's protected and it's backed up, so nothing is lost, and that's greater security in most scenarios than we can actually create with our on-prem solutions. And thinking about all of this in the context of the current pandemic, we're seeing organizations returning people back to work now, so it's that agility, that flexibility that we're going to need, as most organizations have or are planning to adopt new operating models, allowing more flexibility and remote working. So we need to consider how we will automate more of our processes and remove the manual intervention that's required to run payroll or allow HR to really truly support our business. We need to be able to leverage technology and the cutting edge capabilities to drive automation, to give real-time analytics, to be able to leverage artificial intelligence or machine learning or both, so we can really support our business while continuing to provide a great user experience. So in short, that's probably a really long way of saying cloud provides flexibility. It gives us agility, business continuity. Cloud means business resilience, which right now is what we need in our organizations as we start to transition to new operating models moving forwards. Marcos, perhaps you can walk us through the customer's journey to the cloud.
Yes, thanks, Gareth. So Gareth has been talking about the reasons to move to cloud. However, the journey to get there is a pretty involved process. However, SAP and partners like Allied NGA have done everything possible to make that a streamlined process, an easier process to go through, an easier journey really to get to a successful outcome. So that starts from the very beginning, from the point at which you're assessing your options and evaluating what how you want to move to cloud, what pieces do you want to start with, what the solution is going to look like. And SAP provides industry analyst reports that can give insight into what your competitors are doing, where are you ahead, where are you behind. They've also provided the HCM Resource Center, which is a customer-facing website, and it shares data-driven insights and innovative ideas from HCM experts across all industries that are working with SAP SuccessFactors. They provide a product direction and roadmaps so that as you're going in, not only what functionality exists today, but what will be available down the road. And since the cloud environment is always changing and you're always kept up to date with the latest functionality, It's great to know what innovations are coming so that you're not just purchasing a product for today, you're purchasing a product that will evolve over time, that you can manage that evolution and take advantage of it, and you will always be up to date. That's something that you don't get in an on-premise environment, where essentially you go live with the system, and the longer you're live on that system, the more outdated it is. Also, SAP provides peer benchmarking and business case development. This, again, helps you compare yourself to your peers, and it also helps you put numbers to the advantages that you'll get, whether it be from increased employee retention, increased ability to attract the best talent, more accurate, more timely payroll, and streamlined payroll operations. There's all sorts of different ways in which improving your systems will help your business, and SAP has provided tools that your SAP rep can work with you with to put a number to that you can take to your leadership team and help get the support you need and the budget required to make this journey. And so that's the decision-making step. Then there's the implementation phase, setting up the system to meet your needs. You're not on your own for this either. SAP provides a pre-configured global solution. They call it Model Company. Alight NGA also has a similar methodology, which we'll get to a little bit later. But this is basically a system. You're not going to get an empty box. You're going to get a system that's already pre-configured with best practices that you can then tailor to your needs. So you're starting with a baseline that will work very well, and then you can basically configure it as needed to match your particular business needs. There's also tools like the data migration tool and integration tools. These help automate the process of migrating to the new environment. The data migration tool does what it sounds like. It brings over in an automated fashion the data from your legacy SAP on-prem system into SuccessFactors. There's an entire process library as well of best practices, so that you can pick and choose which best practice processes make the most sense for you, and still retain that flexibility to tailor things to your needs. There's also the transport center that once you've set everything up in your development environment, you've tested everything out, it automates the process of moving that to the production environment, so it reduces mistakes. And there's also a configuration check tool, which will, using AI and automation, will determine if there is any configuration errors that you need to take a look at in your system, and make sure that when you do go live, that those issues are fixed, that things go live smoothly, and that from day one your customers know that the system is stable and ready to go. And that just takes you up until the go live. The journey doesn't end there. Obviously, now you're going to be living with the system. There's ways you can optimize your return on investment for that system. The customer community is for SuccessFactors HCM, it's the largest HCM community out there. There are 65,000 members. They're constantly sharing experiences, says what works great for them, and so that you can benefit from that knowledge and from that community experience to gain the most insight into how to best manage the system and make sure that the solution is adopted effectively. I mean, so you can put together a great system, but some people will always want to continue to call up the service center, open a ticket, rather than taking advantage of the self-service functionality. Solution adoption programs are there to help mitigate that and ensure that your users fully adopt your SAP SuccessFactors solution. There's also, on the topic of community, there's also virtual and in-person events. Obviously, in the age of COVID, there's more emphasis on the virtual these days, but COVID won't be around forever. Eventually, in-person events will come back in vogue, and those are opportunities for customers to get together, share their experiences, and that will help you make sure that that you're keeping up to date with the latest releases and the latest new functionality that can help your businesses run better, and share employee experiences. And some you can find out that the new functionality that was released for the recruiting module was very well received on another customer. You can easily enable it yourself. So you have the benefit of other people's experiences. You're not on your own when it comes to running these systems. And then finally, there's running the systems from a administrative perspective. There's all the documentation for those best practices that we talked about in the implementation phase. That's already there as well. There's also in-app help screens. So these are robust UI texts that are available out of the box that you can include in your system. And so your employees, when they're staring at one of the screens, if they have a question, they can go to the in-system help and get immediate answers. They don't need to open a ticket. They don't have to be confused, and they don't require in-person training. You don't need to have that training for your entire employee population. Oftentimes when we're responding to RFPs where a customer is looking at moving to cloud, they're asking us, what does it cost to train the end user population? And this may be a population of 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 or more people. And what we tell them, based on our experience, it's not like the old days where software was less intuitive than it is today. The SuccessFactors is a very intuitive tool. The help materials are built straight into the application. They're available from the screen. End users don't need the level of training that they used to need for these systems. So we're always happy to help customers with end user training. It's always available, but it's an expense that is not required the way it used to be. These really are tools that when you release it to the population, you let people know it's there, you give them some basic navigational tutorials online, they know where to go, where to find help, and they're generally good to go. And the system is very well received. But for administrators as well, there's also ongoing learning resources and admin centers so that administrators can keep on top of the latest updates, know which ones that they should enable that will help their operations run smoother. So we, as SuccessFactors and partners like Alight NGA, they really make sure that the journey from the beginning to the end of your cloud transformation and ongoing, you're never on your own. There's always support at all phases of the journey. Okay, so next slide. So we've talked about the benefits of cloud. We talked about the journey, but there are some customers out there that still haven't made that move yet. And we've talked to those customers. We actually did a survey a few months back and got the top reasons why they have not yet moved to cloud. And so I'll work from the bottom up on this. The first one, moving from an on-premise system where they have complete control of the system to a cloud where somebody else controls the system can be a little daunting because it's a shift in mindset. If you're thinking right now, I control everything, now I have to give it up, that creates concerns around reliability. Is the system going to be available when I need it? That also creates concerns about security. It's like, okay, so my data is going to be stored somewhere off premise in a data center. Like, how do I know that my data is secure? So when I'm talking to those customers, I always have to point out that companies like SuccessFactors, this is their core business model, and SAP SuccessFactors is one of the largest software providers in the world, and definitely one of the largest HCM software providers in the world. They have stronger incentives and more resources to make sure their security, their reliability is absolutely bulletproof. It is mission critical to them. Their reputation on this and their business relies on them being absolutely solid on these two items. Can you say the same? For the vast majority of companies, the HCM system and the payroll system, these are supporting functions. They are not your core business. So many customers are operating with less resources, and basically all customers are operating with less resources than a company like SuccessFactors can bring to the table. So if it's virtually a given that moving to cloud will ensure that you have a system that's more secure and more reliable. And then the next concern with moving to the cloud is the implementation and the implementation experience and the time frame for the deployment. Moving to a new HCM system, as I mentioned, is a daunting task. There's a lot of moving parts, and customers need a lot of support. This is where the right partner comes into play. The right implementation partner can really guide you through the experience. Make sure you know everything you need to know ahead of time, that you're not going to be learning from experience on this. You're going to be learning from the partner's experience, a partner like Allied NGA. And our previous experience, it's going to be a much less painful process to move to the cloud with the right partner. And that also extends to the final high level barrier to moving to the cloud, and that's cost. By leveraging our experience, we're able to run through the implementation with a shorter timeline, less risk, and less effort required, therefore less cost. And it's not only a cost like out of pocket what you would pay to a partner, it's also your internal costs, because your own people are going to support the implementation by providing business requirements and ensuring that the solution matches your needs. And they have to manage that while also managing their business as usual activities. The right partner will make that much easier. And so how do we do that? Can you go to the next slide, please? So one way the right partner can make the entire experience better is by providing an end-to-end partner that can help you move engage on your cloud journey at all steps under one contract. SuccessFactors has what they call their partner managed cloud solution, which allows partners like Allied NGA to sell the subscription, and we actually get very good pricing on the subscription model because we own the customer. Essentially, with the partner managed cloud, you have a relationship with Allied NGA. So you come to us when you have an issue, when you need something implemented, when you need something changed. We manage you as a customer. We own that relationship, and therefore SAP can give us fantastic subscription pricing to reduce costs. We would also be your implementation partner, so we will help you get the system up and running. But we will also provide the ongoing support. So after go live, we will support you at the level that you require, high touch or low touch, and we will make sure that you're on top of the latest releases. We will make sure that you are adapting the system to your needs as new business requirements come up. We can even expand that all the way up to we become your payroll department by managing your payroll, or we can just do some of the payroll services like post payroll taxes and garnishment services. We're very flexible on the level of support. It's all based on what the customer needs are. So next slide. And as far as the implementation methodology, the right partner will bring to the table different ways of, or a set of ways of making that implementation journey easier. What I'm about to talk about is the ways that Allied NGA does it. These are what we think are important. But when you're evaluating partners, I think it makes sense to ask them, okay, what do you bring to the table that will make this implementation experience better, and see how it compares to what we bring to the table. Number one, we bring best practice process maps. Like SAP's model company, we have a pre-configured solution based on best practices that was designed based on our experience implementing, but also running HR and payroll systems. And we also have a pre-contract due diligence assessment to measure before we get into the implementation how close your business needs align to these best practices. Where will the standard solution work perfectly with you? Where might it need some adjustment in process, and where might we need to modify the baseline configuration to match your needs? So we go into the project knowing pretty much how much, what the work is going to entail, and then it's just a matter of defining the details and doing the work. We also have, to support that, we have a process optimization methodology where we sit down with you and we say, okay, this is how the best practices for the solution are configured today. And what are your practices now? How can we close that gap? And we can be flexible and change the solution to fit your needs, or we can be more prescriptive and really push customers to move towards best practice. It is very common that when we talk to a customer, you talk to the CHRO, you talk to the VP level, the C-suite, they're saying we need to standardize our solutions, our processes are not mature. We need to adapt to a best practice solution, and that's great. It makes perfect sense. That's the right way to go. But then you get down into the rank and file, and they're used to working one way or another. And then when you ask them, why do you do things this way? The answer is, well, that's because we do things this way. So in those situations, we can be more consultative and say, okay, this is the best practice. You work a little bit different, but I'm not convinced. You tell me, why do you need to continue working that way? Why not move towards the best practices that are based on our experience running HR and payroll for different customers? So along with our best practice processes, we also have a model deployment plan. We have pre-configured application design, standard design workshops. Basically, our entire methodology is built around this baseline configuration and baseline of best practices, so that you start off with a system that will work well for you and can be adapted to your needs as needed. Okay, so next slide. And so how does this benefit you? Well, right off the bat, you're going to have a shorter project timeline by reusing existing configuration, and that's HR and payroll configuration, extends to talent as well. That reduces your implementation costs and reduces your internal effort to support the project. And that also lets you focus more strongly on testing payroll and HR for quality and performance, making sure it meets your needs, making sure your operations can be streamlined. And it guarantees you have less risk, higher project quality, and you have a successful go live, and a go live that's on time. So Gareth, can you go into
Sure.
key considerations for the case for change?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Marcus. Good overview. So we often get asked, how do we secure investment for cloud? And, it's a really, really valid question, because if you get it wrong, it's disastrous, and it can often put you out several years. Fundamentally, if something isn't broken, or there are no really obvious benefits, then the requests for fundings don't get very far. They're not going to get improved. So we really need to understand what that case for change is. So the key things that we need to take into consideration is, if we look at the first step, it's about understanding what we have today and what we're trying to achieve by changing existing solutions. We need to explore the case for change. What are the value drivers that mean changing the technology will allow us to have a better organization tomorrow? The temptation for most is to just jump too far ahead and maybe start at step 3, looking at the functionality, but then when the requests then are submitted for funding, the board doesn't really understand, because, as far as they can see, everything seems to be working today. There are no issues. Yes, people might work a little harder, but they don't truly understand, our payroll heroes, for instance, who are working in the background, and a huge amount of manual activities to make something work. Functionality itself isn't reason enough. We need to be able to validate and articulate the case for change. So when we understand the case for change, we can then start to move to look at the functionality to determine if it's going to do what we need it to do, and begin to understand how it's going to fit into our current architecture, and also, will it meet our security and compliance needs? And once this piece is validated, then we can start to have a look at the implementation approach. And then, we're then looking at the full transformation program and really understanding, is a rapid deployment solution or a fast track solution right for us? Can we take advantage of these accelerators? Maybe a lift and shift is right for our business. Then we can consider and understand the rollout plan, what that looks like for us. Is it going to be country by country, or is it going to be different countries in parallel? Are we going to go big bang? Are we going to run some pilots? Really taking the time to understand what is manageable and what's going to be best for our organization. So every consideration needs to be linked back to our business case, because this way we're going to ensure that we're able to measure and recognize the benefits as we move through implementation to adoption of the solution. So we've spoken quite a bit about the reasons to consider cloud, the impacts of COVID-19, the benefits of cloud, the transformation and the cloud accelerators, and finally the case for change. So I think it's probably time now that we open up the floor. We've got some time left now that we can check in and take any questions that people might have. Heidi, have we got anything coming through?
Yeah, we do actually. We've had a couple come through. One is you speak a lot about moving to the cloud and the data behind it. And one, they want to understand, want to know if there's data within the cloud to help understand and manage culture when people are working remotely. Is there a way to better understand and manage culture when people are working remotely?
Yeah, I can. Do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah. Absolutely, there is. There's all aspects of data, and even as we talk about payroll data, there's also data that you can garnish from that as well as you look at benefits and different scenarios around that affect culture. You've also got, you are looking into other modules, I guess, to understand certain performance issues. You've got products like Qualtrics that can obviously do pulse and understand people's sentiment at particular moments in time and moments that matter as well. So yes, the beauty with cloud is all the data across these areas are accessible, and based on the modules that you have, with analytics and sometimes just with simple reporting, you can get the data around those points that I made earlier around culture, around performance, about engagement and those things. I think the key thing I'd say to you there, though, is just as I said before, culture is a kind of a living, breathing thing. It's owned by the organization. It can change. So does the data. So, one snapshot doesn't give you the full picture. It's all about pulsing and asking the right questions of that data on an ongoing basis. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Mark. And I think actually it should change within the organization, right? These tools allow us to take the O data, the people data that currently sits in there, the transactional stuff, and measure the experience data as well. And when we bring those two together, that then gives the organization, the insights, the different levers that they can pull to change, to drive the organization in a different direction that's going to allow them to, give a better user experience and also be more efficient.
Perfect.
100%.
Another one that's come through is, have you noted any differences between certain industries and how the current changes have been tackled?
Go on, Gareth. I can chime in, but you go, mate.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of different industries, yes, I would say definitely seeing different industries more adaptive to the sort of change in how they're able to manage in the current environment. I spoke before around a current customer of ours who's, while they transitioned to a home working style, they actually lost a huge amount of productivity. So obviously there's certain customers or certain industries that can move to that model, while others, if they've got a large sort of retail footprint, in-store footprint, it's a bit more challenging, but they're looking at models of how they can adapt, how they can be, engage that contingent workforce better as well. But I think for the whole, we're seeing, across the board, really an appetite to really move, if not wholesale, certainly key areas of their business. I talked about payroll before, and sorry if I sound like a broken record, but that's a key process which, for a lot of organizations, whether during the pandemic, kept the lights on or not, or they've actually had their stores running or their online businesses running. Whatever happened, if we look at the UK, we've had the furlough where people have still got to be paid. Those people those HR, let's call them heroes, have still actually got to run payroll. For some of them, they had a really uncomfortable position of having to go in to their offices to do a lot of those activities because they couldn't run from home. So we're seeing kind of wholesale now, most industries saying, fundamentally, we need to change some of these because, we don't have that business resilience, that that ability to change if any of this comes again. I can think of only one organization out there who truly had a pandemic plan. For most, they never had this, right? But most organizations now are thinking, we have a risk management plan for our business, but we haven't prepared for pandemic. Actually, what if this happens again? What does that mean for our processes, for our people? How are we going to operate? So we're seeing an increased engagement where we maybe thought actually we might see quite a drop in customers wanting to move and take on new projects and stuff. We're seeing the opposite actually, as businesses are really sort of engaging in that front.
Yeah, and I'd probably just add, Gareth, that I also see kind of globally as well that organizations, even the simplest of things like having laptops, having the mobility aspect of things covered, weren't thought of. If you think of a lot of shared service centers or BPO companies, you will find that some of them weren't prepared to suddenly move that workforce home and be able to give them access to the systems. And again, as you guys have really eloquently put today, having these sorts of things in the cloud, having the systems in place to do that, and partnering with vendors, yes, slightly biased like SAP SuccessFactors, gives us the ability to give organizations that agility and flexibility, to give their people access to the systems that they need to do their job, but also, as to that previous question, is to still be engaged in the organization. Shock horror, you don't need to be in the office 9 to 5. You need to be there to do you need to be in an organization that measures your outputs, and that's really what you need to be in. Where you do those outputs should really be irrelevant. So raft of organizations, but I think what's surprising is, and as you said, Gareth, I can only think of a handful that actually had a plan for a pandemic. So the good news is, though, everybody has that experience now, and I'm sure that they all have plans for the next pandemic. Let's just hope it's another 100 or so years away.
I have one other one. It says, what are you hearing from the customers you are engaging with, Mark, at the global level?
It has been an extremely humbling couple of months for me, because we have stood with, and also with partners like we're here today with Alight and NGA, not just us and SuccessFactors, our partners too, have stood shoulder by shoulder with our customers who have literally watched their kind of world turn upside down in the space of days and weeks. The things I've really heard and what they've really benefited from is the ability to quickly give information and communicate and allow collaboration through our platform. That has been the main thing. The other thing that we've been able to do is, being part of our customer base, our SuccessFactors family, as we lovingly call it. You heard early on that our community is a living, breathing thing, and it's something we value highly, but it is owned by our customers. And so the other thing that we were able to do is what I was hearing was, Mark, what are they doing? What are they doing in Latin America? What are other companies doing in retail? What are other companies doing in finance, Mark? What are they doing about this? And what we were able to do, and it was already there, was facilitate those conversations. Now, they were talking already across the community about helping each other out, and these can be CHROs on quite a kind of topic around, global policies or, government grants, and how do we know who's qualified, who isn't qualified, who gets things, who doesn't, all the way through to, heads of learning or learning administrators saying, okay, I'm going to suddenly put all this stuff online and I'm going to get all this learning done. Has anybody done that? So, one of the great advantages is that as I said, I'm a little biased, but the technology enables that. But, as users, you don't know what you don't know in new situations. So what we heard a lot from the customers was really about sharing experiences, and also kind of mulling through possible scenarios and outcomes. I'm sure we can all remember, we still don't know now really, but how is this thing panning out? What next? What about this? How does this government law affect that? Or there were so many kind of questions that had 3 or 4 scenarios. But the main thing, I guess, I'm certainly hearing on a global basis is that surprisingly enough, the technology was always there, and this has given us that human push to actually use it. And people are starting to realize, dare I say, and I know we're coming near the end, but there's some great positives coming out of this. There's some great actual things that we've probably all talked about, and the people on this webinar have always discussed about the opportunities we could do. But now, I think talent is going to be global. I don't think, and I'm maybe being selfish, I'm going to have to get on a plane every other week. I think we can use these mediums. I think people can implement remotely. So our customers, I'm hearing a couple of things. I'm hearing that this has been challenging and it's been great to be part of a community. I'm also hearing that there's a ray of sunshine in this, that finally those big changes and those changes that HR have been advocating for, and that, well, the likes of me and you have been advocating for as employees, are now going to become business as usual. So that hopefully that gives a flavor of what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. It looks like we are at time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you very much, and thank you to the panelists. And if there are any follow-up questions that anybody has or would like us to reach out to them, you can just drop your name and your email address in the questions box. We will be happy to follow up with you guys. Thank you again, and have a wonderful afternoon, night, morning, and until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.